I went back and forth with this one, Skip, and I know both teams won last week, but I thought Dallas looked more impressive in their win than the Washington football team looked in their win. But when you're dealing with teams like this, these are division rivals, and they go back, this rivalry goes back, what? It's, okay, 1960. So it goes back. It goes back 60 years.
I wanted to say it went back to the 1800s because it feels like it did. It does.
Yeah. I was thinking, I'm like, hold on. The Cowboys didn't exist in '33 when obviously the football team that had another name existed. But Skip, so I'm throwing out records, and what this means. What this means is that the winner of this ball game will be in first place in this horrible, horrible division. And no matter what you think, how horrible it is, somebody from this division is going to get a home playoff game. I took Washington, Skip, because I'm looking at them over the last month. They're 2-2. They're first in pass defense. They're second in sacks, third in scoring D, third on third down, 10th against the run. And what they did the last game to Andy Dalton, they got after him. They sacked him 6 times, allowed 3 yards per carry. And the Cowboys are going to run the football because the difference between this week and last week, Minnesota could not pressure Andy Dalton. And he got real comfortable. So not only was he comfortable, they couldn't stop the run. The one thing I know about Jack Del Rio, the defensive coordinator of Washington, is that he'll shut up the run, and they'll put all their money. Basically, when you look at their high draft picks, it's in the defensive line. Allen, Payne, Chase Young, Kerrigan, Sweat, all those guys were first-round draft pick. 1, Chase Young, number 2. The lowest draft pick was Sweat on the first line, and he went in the 26th pick in the draft.
Yep.
So I like Washington to choke off the run, put pressure on Andy Dalton. I'm going to make Andy Dalton beat me. Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard, you're not going to play a role in this ball game. And as good as the Cowboys' defense have been, they've given up 24 passing touchdowns with 3 interceptions. So in other words, they've turned every quarterback that they've faced into Patrick Mahomes. That's what they've done. That's what the defense have done. That's what the numbers indicate. So I'm going to take the Washington in a very close ball game. I'm going to say they win 2016.
2016, yeah. Says the Hall of Famer Shannon Sharpe. Yeah. I hate to admit this. I disagree with nothing you just said, except for your conclusion. So allow me to frame today for you. In all my years, my 40-odd years of covering professional football, I have never, ever experienced anything like what is about to happen on, you can argue, the biggest stage this side, the Super Bowl in this sport. Right. If my Cowboys win today against their arch rival, as you say, they're not only in first place, they're in the driver's seat to win a home playoff game, to win the right to play a home playoff game, right? Because they would win this division and somebody has to win it. If they lose today, they will plunge into the cellar of the NFC East. And I saw this morning that the Football Power Index, if they lose, will give them only a 6% chance of winning the East. So think about it. It is going to be feast or famine, all in one afternoon on the Thanksgiving stage,
well,
right?
If they win this game, they only got an 8% chance of making a play. That's how bad the division is.
Okay, I got it. But again, by strength of remaining schedule, Dallas is second easiest in the whole NFL. If they can beat Washington today, the team that beat them the worst of anybody they've played, the team that humiliated them, that ran them off the field at Washington exactly a month ago, right, October 25th, then they catapult from the doldrums, from me over here just in anguish, into a position of strength in the least, right?
Yes.
So today, for me, will expose or reveal who you are as a football team. Are you men or are you mice? Because this is a men or mice game. This is how strong is your backbone? How much do you care about winning the worst division by far, probably in the history of pro football?
Right.
Are you going to do what you did last Sunday at Minnesota, which was simply play the best game you played all year and win the most impressive game that anybody in the NFC East has won all year? That was the most impressive win to me. You could argue with that, but given that Minnesota had won 3 straight and it was at Minnesota, that was the most impressive. That showed you the capability of this team.
Well, considering, Skip, they've only beaten each other in the division, so nobody's really had an impressive win outside of the division.
Okay. So for me, I believe that you'll know from the first snap of this game. I believe Dallas will be ready to play this game. I think they will play a little harder than a team that I agree with you. On paper, I think Washington's a little better. I think you've seen the Cowboys coming for 3 weeks. They were actually in position to beat Philly at Philly, but they had Ben DiNucci, a rookie at quarterback, and God bless him, I'm going to knock on wood for him. That might have been the first and last game he ever starts in this league.
Maybe ever plays.
Well, that's what I'm saying, okay? Then 2 weeks back against the undefeated Steelers in Jerry World, I saw, wait a second, that guy? Garrett Gilbert? I saw him be in position to close the deal against the Steelers. And I thought he played well enough to close the deal, but they couldn't overcome the second team on the field, the referees.
There you go.
Okay, but did they not play well enough to win the game?
They did, and I think that gave them confidence playing with a third or fourth string quarterback. Said, hold on, that team is undefeated, and we took them down to the wire. So I think that gave them confidence even though they lost.
Okay, so now Andy Dalton is back at quarterback. He is not Dak Prescott, but he's not bad. Again, for those who have missed this point, he has made 3 Pro Bowls. You can say in his distant past, but he has.
Yes.
He has played in 4 playoff games in his life. He has not won one of them, but you can't tell me this stage today is too big for Andy Dalton because he knows how this feels, right? And for those who missed the point, in his first 5 years in the league, he averaged winning 10 games a year. So he knows what it feels like to go to Minnesota and win a pretty big game, right? Now it's about arch rivalry. Now it's about revenge. You got annihilated at Washington because you did not show up. That was the height of a locker room mutiny against the new defensive coordinator, Mike Nolan. Maybe even a mutiny against the other Mike, who's the head coach, Mike McCarthy. After that game, it was so bad that Jerry Jones cut every free agent that he had signed in the offseason. There were 8 of them, and he cut every one. He got rid of them, or he dismissed them.
All of them are gone at this point.
They're all gone because he sided with the new coordinator. He wanted either younger or cornerstone players who were buying into what Mike Nolan was trying to sell to stay. And right on schedule, they started to buy in. So the defense has solidified around the return of Leighton Vander Esch from a broken collarbone in game 1 at Rams. Once he's come back, he can stuff the run. He will plug the hole. He will go helmet to helmet with anybody who comes into the hole. So all of a sudden around him, it started to gel. And all of a sudden, something started happening at Minnesota. There was one key player, one crucial player who did not play at Washington 1 month ago. He missed one game all year, and it was that game. And as you point out, Andy Dalton got sacked 6 times. He got knocked out of the game on a cheap shot by John Bostic. And what did you point out the following day? Not one of the offensive linemen ran to his aid, right? Nobody wanted to defend him. They went to see if he was still alive, right? But nobody wanted to fight over that because that team had quit in that game. That was in the 3rd quarter. Okay, who was the one player who wasn't even out on the field who could have rushed to his defense? His name is Zach Martin. At Minnesota, he moved from right guard to right tackle. You hate Pro Football Focus, but I'm going to use it right now. For any player in the offensive line who's played a minimum of 600 snaps this year, guess who Pro Football Focus ranks as the best offensive lineman in all of football?
It's hard to argue.
Hard to argue. It's Zach Martin. Jerry Jones, 2 days ago on his radio show, compared Zach Martin to Larry Allen. What do we know about Larry Allen?
I just think Larry Allen is the best offensive lineman ever play.
Ever play, said the Hall of Famer Shannon Sharpe.
He played right tackle, he played right guard, he played left guard, he could be left, he could have been, he was all pro in 3 different positions.
Okay, and he is also alongside you in the Hall of Fame. So Jerry is saying that Zach Martin is in the ballpark with Larry Allen, and you know what? That's a leap for me. That's probably too big a leap, but I think he's starting to earn that kind of respect around the league. So all of a sudden, when they moved him from right guard to right tackle, everything started to click. And Andy Dalton stayed clean at Minnesota. They don't rush the passer very well because they've lost too many of their stud rushers. But still, all of a sudden, voila, Ezekiel Elliott returned to the living. He had his first 100-yard game in what seems like 10 years, but it was the first this year, right?
It's been what? He didn't have a whole bunch of the last half of last year.
He did not. It was because they were trying to run behind the new road grader who went from right guard to right tackle. That allowed Connor McGovern, who was a third-round pick 2 years ago, to go to right guard.
Right.
Joe Looney is back at center, and he's a veteran. He's well-traveled, started with San Francisco, but he was a fourth-round pick. He's pretty good at center. He knows how to play center. Connor Williams, I've never been the biggest fan, but at least he was a second-round pick, and he's been okay at left guard.
Because the thing is, Skip, what they wanted to do was get their 5 best offensive linemen on the field. Well, Connor McGovern is one of their better offensive linemen, but he plays the position Zach Martin plays.
Thank you.
So I can't get him on the field.
Can't get him on the field.
So I got to bump Zach out, put you in.
And again, I'm not the biggest fan of Cam Irving, but he did start 8 games for your Kansas City Chiefs 1 year ago as they were rolling toward the Super Bowl championship. He did not start the Super Bowl. He'd lost his job by then, but he's decent, and he's been, I'm going to give him decent at left tackle, solidifying, taking 2 undrafted free agents out of the lineup at right and left tackle, right?
You get a better indication of how good he is. Chase Young will be chomping at the bit. It's his first big-time national televised game. Everybody's watching. He wants to show why the Washington football team selected him with the number 2 overall pick.
Okay.
Cam Irvin's going to have his hands full today, Skip.
I would agree. But yet you got a fighting chance because you got the right people in the right places, and they're starting to gain some confidence as a unit. Listen, Washington is 7th in this league in points allowed. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But as you look at all that talent on paper that I would give a slight edge to Washington over Dallas, I think they've underachieved all year. I don't think they've lived up to all those high first-round picks that just, it's a cavalcade throughout their defense.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the offensive side of the football.
Okay.
Because it's hard, Skip, when you're that deficient on that side of the football. They started with Haskins, and he didn't get off to the great start, but he did come back and beat Philly from down 17-0. But they had Haskins start the next game, and they had Allen, and then, Alex Smith is getting in there. So I think if they can get something going offensively, you can't leave your defense on the field for the amount of snaps. I don't care how good they are, they'll eventually wear down. This is a game about strength versus strength because your offensive line, Dallas, is going to have to protect Andy Dalton.
Well,
and they know they got to get, they're somehow trying to get, they don't want to hurt Andy Dalton, but if they can get to Garrett Gilbert, if they can get Ben DiNucci in the game, they greatly increases their chance of winning.
Yeah, no, I agree. My over-under on sacks today for Andy Dalton is 3. 3 or fewer, Dallas wins. 4 or more, Dallas is going to be in big trouble.
Well, you better hope Zeke and Tony Pollard better have a game like they had last week.
Okay, thunder and lightning. We saw a little lightning from Tony Pollard, and I expect them to go heavy Zeke, but with a healthy dose of Tony Pollard because he can get loose. He's got a burst, and up against Zeke, who seems to be running in slow motion occasionally, it looks even quicker than it probably is on the field. But he got loose at Minnesota for a 42-yard touchdown. We just haven't seen that. We don't get that from Zeke. So I like the 1-2 punch that's starting to emerge. I also, you know how much I love C.D. Lamb. He made what I thought was the NFL catch of the year last week at Minnesota. You argued that Thielen's was better. I still don't think it was. But the point is, C.D. Lamb is emerging as a force on this offense. They're starting to use him more on jet sweeps, any kind of little reverse action, and he returns punts. And Jerry Albert predicted the other day that at some point he's going to get loose on a punt return, and I do agree with that. We're going to talk about him later because Jerry went all the way to compare him to Deion Sanders' burst with a punt, and we can't go there, but we'll get into that later. I'm just telling you, I believe he will be a difference maker today because they have him in the slot, and if you try to defend him with a single slot defender, I don't think Washington can defend that. I think he's starting to get more and more comfortable. Andy Dalton's starting to establish a wavelength with him. So I believe he could be a difference maker against this defense on shorter passes that will lead to longer passes. All right? So in the end, I'm hoping Mike McCarthy showed one piece of tape over and over and over again to the defense. And it was a run by a rookie named Antonio Gibson at Washington on October 25th that made it 9-0. Do you remember this run? Could we please see a run by Antonio? This is it. Did anybody try to tackle him? Did anybody do anything but wave at Antonio Gibson, including Trevon Diggs, who's hurt right now, but nobody tried to tackle him. Nobody tried to tackle him. Xavier Woods did not try to tackle him. I'm sorry. That was as humiliating a moment for me as I have suffered this whole football season as a lifelong Cowboy fan.
Well, I think that also, Skip, Washington, your secondary isn't very good. And Kurt First Cousins had a day. He was 22 of 30, 314 and 3 touchdowns. He had 2 drops. Yep. So really he should have been 26 of 30. Mm-hmm. Your back end can be had. Now the front 4, the front 7 is playing a lot better. You look at D-Law, he's starting to turn it up. Alden Smith, he's consistent with his pressure. They got some guys, Neville Gallimore. They got some guys
Randy
inside.
Gregory.
Yes, they got some guys.
Dorrance Armstrong that Jerry keeps raving about.
Right. But your back end, if Washington can hold up, there are plays to be made, a la Tampa. If that front 7 don't get there, the back end is vulnerable. Same thing with your Cowboys. You're vulnerable on the back end. Nobody fears your secondary, Skip. There's no Jalen Ramsey. There's no Pat Peterson. There's no Stephon Gilmore back there where you're like, man, I don't want any of that. They're not there. Washington defensive line against this is going to win the game, Skip. This is not about Washington's offense. Yeah, you're going to have to move the ball. But if Washington football team cannot generate consistent pressure on Andy Dalton, you can't beat the Cowboys.
Okay. So what have I seen from Washington if I look at the scope of their season so far? They've also obviously won 3 games. Yep. And what were they? They were down going to the fourth quarter and still 17-14 against Philly in the opener, and they came back and won the game 27-17. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll give you that one. The Dallas on October 25th was highly impressive because that was their tour de force game, but it was against a Cowboy team that did not show up.
Right.
And then against Cincinnati, until they knocked Joe Burrow out of the game,
right,
they were down 9-7.
Right.
Okay, so they came back and won 20-9, and Alex Smith was just okay.
Right.
He's been below average in QBR in the 4 games he's played in. I think he's got a 43 overall average. So he's just been okay, just kind of hit and mostly miss. He's 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions.
Right.
Okay, so how have they lived up to the 7th best defense in pro football? That they haven't yet.
Right. Well, but Skip, if they didn't have the 7th best defense in football, they would be over. They would be one of these teams like Jacksonville, or they'd be like the Jets, only won 1 game or won no games. That just lets you know how good their defense is. When you look at his QBR, look at Haskins' QBR. Kyle Allen, I don't even know if he had played enough to register a QBR.
Yep.
Their quarterback play hasn't been good this year. I mean, I love McLaurin. I think they can run the ball decent. They're not great running team. They're not the Tennessee
He's been
Titans.
limited in practice on an ankle, but still, he is a weapon.
Yes. He can catch it, and he can run it. So, look, when these 2 teams get together, there are certain teams that one team might be 10-1, the other team might be 5-6. It doesn't matter. I know you don't like me. I know I don't like you. So whatever the records are, we're going to throw them out the window. We're going to strap it up, and we're going to see.
That is correct. And I believe my team's backbone will show through today.
I ain't got no backbone.
Yeah.
Turkey bone.
Yeah.
Yep. Wishbone. Get broken.
Break it? Yep. You better hope so, or you're going to be up against it tomorrow because I'm going to be out of my mind.
You're going to be out of your mind because you're going to be upset. Skip, we've gone through this the last 3 Thanksgivings. The last 3 Thanksgivings, you come here on Friday and you upset. After Buffalo did a number on you guys, saying the Chargers did a number on you guys, we go through this every year. Every year we go through this.
You know, just a last quick stat. I don't know how, but Ezekiel Elliott on Thanksgiving Day has played 3 games and averaged 118 yards per game in those 3. Maybe it's one of those kind of maybe it's one of these games.
What about what is his win-loss average? That's what I need to know.
All I know is Tom Brady always says the season doesn't start until Thanksgiving. Well, mine is going to start today.
Because, you know.
Thank you.
On my fat old club, Shay, me and you, Jenny, the day for Thanksgiving, only got 2 dishes, Dubs and L's.
Really?
Yeah, which one you ordered, Skip?
We're not coming.
Oh, you coming?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to eat before the game, and then we're going to go straight home and protect ourselves from COVID.
That's okay. You know what? I was able to adapt. I do takeout L's now.
Oh,
Yeah. Ain't no in route, ain't no
Really?
in dining, there's no out dining.
Really?
I do takeout L's.
Really?
Yeah, I get that thing to you.
Well, maybe you can give one to Washington as they board their flight.
No, this
You're
is
pretty
for the
busy today,
Cowboys.
Shannon. Really
Yeah,
busy.
been cooking all night,
Takeout
Jenny.
orders all day. I know. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
You manage so much around here. Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.